Welcome. Israel is worried that a war with Iran might end too quickly. They think Tehran will somehow avoid defeat. Israel fears a quick end to the conflict could rob them of a historic victory. That's the Israelis' concern. While the Trump administration is pushing hard for diplomatic talks to resolve the dispute with Tehran, there's growing serious tension and aggression within Israel's military and political circles. In the coming days, tensions around Tel Aviv and Washington could even escalate further. They're worried that on Saturday, March 28th, there might suddenly be an announcement to stop the fighting, which would pause the war against Iran at its most critical point. According to Israel's Channel K and Channel 12, citing high-ranking government officials, the Israeli leadership is really concerned about the possibility of a temporary halt in military actions. Trump has said he's ready to stop the war if Iran agrees to make significant concessions. However, Israel thinks that this pause is starting way too early, before they've fully achieved the strategic goals of the operation. Israeli officials believe that quickly agreeing to a ceasefire or just declaring peace would let Tehran avoid the conflict without a serious defeat. Meanwhile, Iran's key parts of its missile program, nuclear infrastructure, and regional allied groups like Hezbollah remain untouched. There's a risk of losing their birds. One of the meanings strongly points to this situation. This scenario has woken up Israel's political and military leadership. Recently, America's soft stance and the 15-point plan have come into play. The Trump administration, through Pakistan as a mediator, presented, even though he called these conditions foolish and pushed his own counterplan, Trump and his close circle, like Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff, and Marco Rubio, haven't stopped talking about making the talks productive. Israel's main worry is that the U.S. might agree to pause the nuclear program for just a month to keep the negotiations going, without waiting for all the demands to be met. From Tel Aviv's perspective, this approach basically lets Iran regroup and strengthen its position. It gives the necessary time to consolidate. While Washington is busy with diplomatic maneuvers, the Israeli Air Force is expanding its wave of airstrikes on targets in Tehran and Iran's weapons manufacturing centers. Benjamin Netanyahu emphasizes that the war will only stop once strategic goals are achieved, meaning Iran's nuclear program is completely eliminated and its military capabilities are weakened to the maximum. Israeli intelligence, and according to the military's calculations, it'll take at least a few more months of war to completely destroy Tehran's missile and nuclear capabilities. Although it's clear that the final decision lies in Washington, they're still pushing to ramp up military pressure on Iran to the max, trying not to miss what they call a historic opportunity to completely neutralize their main regional rival. So far, neither the U.S. nor Tehran has officially confirmed these days the United States is at war with Iran alongside Israel, but the main burden is falling on the U.S. And serious questions are starting to come up, not just among regular Americans, but even within the American elite, like, why do we even need this war? Why are we spending so much? So far, this war mostly looks like a financial drain on the U.S. Sure, American soldiers have died in this conflict, but mostly, costs are piling up. According to the latest calculations, it's around $27 billion, but it might have even reached $30 billion by now. They say the daily expenses are about $1 billion. Rockets cost millions and millions, plus every single plane flight costs several $1,000s. Right now, America is just looking at the expenses. But according to analysts, experts, and others, to surrender Iran, troops need to be sent on the ground into Iran. Or at least you need to take control of the territories that belong to Iran. Which areas? It could be Coral or the Hormuz Strait, but you can't just take them over with machines or equipment alone. Taking them over means sending in troops. And since sending in troops means real warfare, there will be casualties and human losses along the way. Along with those human losses, it's a mess. In the end, this will just raise more questions in American society. If dozens or hundreds of American soldiers end up dead, that would put serious pressure on the Trump administration. But at the same time, there's no talk at all about Israel sending troops into Iran. In other words, Israeli soldiers stepping foot on Iranian soil isn't happening. And if the U.S. does decide to send in ground forces, there's news that some units might come from Israel too. It hasn't come out yet. But there is a concern that if Israel ends this strike now, we will not achieve our goal, and they are worried that the United States, for example, will negotiate. But in America, a natural and justified question is being asked a lot. Why us? The resignation of the head of the American National Terrorism Center, the former head, also shows a lot. That in America, there are more people who are dissatisfied with this strike than those who agree. Now, March 28th is being said very seriously. If Iran agrees to some conditions, or a major part of the conditions, or some other conditions that somehow satisfy this Trump, the war could end on March 28th.